In this world filled with unseen challenges, many people speak about strange forces, hidden harm, and what some may call new forms of magic. They worry about the jealousy of others, the silent evil that seems to block their success, or the sudden illnesses that have no medical reason. Yet, what we often forget is that everything, every movement of the wind, every whisper of harm, every breath of life is under the complete command of the Creator. No force, no magic, and no curse can touch you unless your Lord permits it. The true protection and cure lie not in charms, amulets, or mysterious rituals, but in the strength of one's faith and the purity of one's connection with the divine. When your heart is firm in belief, you realize that fear itself is a kind of illusion that weakens the soul. The moment you begin to replace fear with faith, the unseen powers lose their influence over you. A believer understands that harm and benefit come only from Allah, and that realization itself is the strongest shield. Every person who desires protection must begin by cleansing the heart, for the heart is the gate through which peace or distress enters. Just as we care for our bodies through hygiene and nourishment, the soul also needs spiritual care. Reciting the Quran daily, offering sincere prayers, giving charity, and remembering the Creator in moments of ease and hardship build a wall of light around the believer. Each time one utters Bismillah, they invite divine guardianship upon their affairs. Each verse recited in reflection brings comfort to the heart and strength to the soul. The Quran itself is a remedy, not only for physical ailments, but for the pain that dwells deep within the heart. Those who recite with belief feel its healing power flow through their lives. Verses like Al, Kursi, Shura Al, Falak, and Surah, and Nas are like spiritual shields driving away fear, jealousy, and the whispers of harm. But they must be read not as empty rituals, rather as heartfelt supplications filled with trust and sincerity. A person who understands this knows that true healing begins from within. When you fill your thoughts with remembrance, gratitude, and patience, your entire being aligns with peace. You no longer panic when you hear of someone's envy or a person's evil eye, for you know that your protector is far greater than any harm they can plan. The believer who lives with this awareness walks through life calm and unshaken. Such a person's light frightens away the darkness before it even approaches. However, those who fall into fear often run to the wrong places for help. Magicians, fortune tellers, or objects promising protection. In truth, these are traps that lead the soul away from light. Any act that involves seeking power besides Allah's is not protection, but a path toward greater harm. Real safety comes when you surrender to the one who controls both the seen and unseen. You do not need a secret formula, a hidden stone, or a paid healer to protect you. What you need is purity of faith and constancy in worship. Every act of obedience becomes a barrier against evil. When you rise for prayer at dawn, angels surround you. When you recite words of remembrance after sunset, your home becomes a fortress. When you forgive those who wrong you, your heart becomes untouchable. The beauty of faith is that it transforms the believer into someone untouchable by darkness, because their strength comes from light. When you start living with this consciousness, the so-called new magic loses meaning. It cannot harm the one who is already guarded by divine will. The real magic is when a person discovers peace in faith, when they realize that patience is power, prayer is protection, and trust is healing. That transformation is greater than any spell, because it turns weakness into wisdom and fear into faith. Every pain becomes a lesson, every loss a purification, and every delay a divine design preparing you for something better. That is the hidden magic of faith. It cures the heart, protects the soul, and opens doors you never imagined. when you anchor yourself in belief and constantly seek the protection of Allah through remembrance, sincerity, and gratitude, no darkness can remain in your path. The unseen harm may exist, but its influence fades when faced with the light of a faithful heart. That is where true protection and real cure reside. Not in worldly objects, but in the eternal bond between you and your Creator. In the world we live in, many people fear what they cannot see. The hidden harm, the jealousy of others, the strange blockages in their lives, and what some call new magic. These fears grow because people often forget that everything that happens, good or bad, light or dark, is under the complete control of the Creator. No one can harm you unless the Almighty allows it. And even when He allows a test, it is for a greater purpose, to strengthen your heart, purify your soul, and draw you closer to Him. The greatest illusion is believing that something other than Allah can influence your destiny. The cure for fear, envy, and unseen harm is not found in amulets, charms, or rituals, but in faith, remembrance, and patience. When you rely on Allah alone, the chains of fear begin to break, and your soul finds peace even when the world feels heavy. Each time you say Bismillah, you are building a wall of light around your actions. Every verse you recite from the Quran becomes a sword that cuts through the whispers of darkness. Faith is your strongest protection, and remembrance is your greatest weapon. The moment you let go of fear and hold on to belief, unseen forces lose their power over you. The more you remember Allah, the more peace surrounds you. The Quran is a cure, not just for illness, but for confusion, sadness, and spiritual weakness. Those who recite with conviction find that their hearts grow calm, their homes become safe, and their lives begin to shine again. There is no better healer than the one who created you, and no greater medicine than His words. Each recitation of Surah Al, Falaq, Surah An, Nas, or Ayat Al, Kursi places layers of divine protection around you. These verses are not just to be read, but to be felt, understood, and lived. When you turn to the Creator sincerely, even the unseen trembles before your faith. Many people, in moments of fear, make the mistake of turning to the wrong sources for help: magicians, fortune tellers, and those who claim to remove harm with secret powers. But the truth is that seeking help from those who disobey Allah will never bring safety. It only invites more harm. Real protection comes not from people, but from the purity of your relationship with your Lord. When you keep your prayers consistent, your heart humble, and your actions sincere, you build a shield stronger than any worldly object could provide. Your prayer before dawn, your remembrance after sunset, your patience during hardship, and your gratitude in moments of ease, all of these become layers of protection. The heart that is filled with faith cannot be touched by fear. The soul that remembers Allah cannot be controlled by darkness. The greatest transformation, the real new magic, is when you realize that peace, healing, and protection have always been within you, through faith, through prayer, through trust. Every hardship becomes a hidden blessing. Every pain becomes a lesson, and every delay becomes a doorway to something greater. When you start seeing the world with this understanding, fear turns into strength, and confusion turns into clarity. You begin to live with courage, knowing that no harm can touch you unless it is meant for your growth. That awareness itself is the ultimate cure. A heart so firm in belief that nothing can shake it, a soul so pure that no darkness can reach it, and a mind so content that even the unseen becomes powerless before it. That is where the real protection lies, in your faith, your patience, and your unwavering trust in the one who never leaves you unguarded. In life, many people find themselves troubled by things they cannot see or explain. They speak of envy, the evil eye, and mysterious obstacles that suddenly appear in their paths. Some call it new magic, others call it unseen harm. But in truth, nothing happens without the knowledge and permission of the one who created everything. The greatest mistake a person can make is to give power to fear instead of faith. When the heart is filled with fear, it begins to imagine that people or unseen forces have control over destiny, while in reality, only Allah holds that control. When one realizes this truth, half the battle is already won. The believer who understands that nothing can harm or benefit him except by the will of his Lord finds peace even in difficulty. The strength of a person's heart comes not from wealth, knowledge, or status, but from how firmly it is attached to the remembrance of its Creator. Every moment spent in prayer, every verse recited, every act of patience becomes a shield against the unseen harm that tries to disturb one's peace. When the tongue remembers Allah, the soul becomes protected. And when the heart is pure, darkness cannot remain within it. The real cure to all forms of unseen pain begins with faith and ends with trust. Many people, when faced with hardship or unexplained misfortune, begin searching for worldly solutions in places where no real cure exists. They may visit those who claim to know the unseen, or wear charms believing they hold some secret power. But these actions only distance the person from divine help. True healing can never come from what displeases the Almighty. The moment you seek help from sources other than Him, you weaken the protection you already have. The path to safety is simple yet powerful. Strengthen your prayer, purify your intentions, and remember your Lord in every situation. When you start each task with Bismillah, it carries blessings. When you end your day with gratitude, it carries peace. The recitation of the Quran is the most effective medicine for both the heart and the body. Verses such as Ayat al-Kursi, Surah al-Falaq, and Surah an-Nas are not mere words, but divine shields that guard the believer when recited with sincerity. The Quran brings calm to the heart, wisdom to the mind, and strength to the soul. It is not only about protection from harm, but also about nurturing a state of inner balance where fear cannot survive. The person who regularly recites, reflects, and applies the Quran lives in a constant circle of light that no darkness can penetrate. The real transformation happens when you begin to see trials not as punishments, but as opportunities for purification. Every hardship carries a hidden mercy. Every pain hides a lesson, and every delay brings something better. When you stop fighting what you cannot control and instead trust the plan of your Creator, your heart becomes untouchable. That is the true cure. A peace that no harm can break and a strength that no magic can weaken. The believer who relies fully on Allah walks with confidence even in uncertainty, because he knows that every harm is limited and every cure is near. The so-called new magic of today is not in the hands of people, but in the awakening of faith within the heart. The moment you surrender to the Almighty's wisdom, fear loses its grip and calmness takes its place. When your trust deepens, your protection strengthens. This realization turns anxiety into patience and suffering into strength. The greatest miracle you can experience is not the removal of harm, but the discovery of peace in the middle of it. That peace itself becomes your shield, your medicine, and your victory. When faith lives in the heart, no evil can overpower it, no darkness can last around it, and no magic can touch it. That is where true protection and complete healing are found. Within the believer who trusts his Creator completely and lives with the light of faith as his everlasting armor. Many people today live with hidden fears. The fear of envy, the evil eye, or mysterious blockages that seem to stop their success. They hear stories about new kinds of magic, unseen forces, and negative energies, and their hearts begin to fill with anxiety. In truth, the unseen world does exist, but it has no power of its own. Everything that happens in the heavens and the earth occurs only by the will of the Almighty. The moment a person realizes this, fear begins to lose its control. The greatest mistake people make is to think that someone else can harm them independently of Allah. Such thinking opens the door to weakness, worry, and hopelessness. When the heart becomes dependent on worldly things, it becomes fragile. But when it depends only on its creator, it becomes unbreakable. Every difficulty that reaches a person carries a message, a test, or a reminder to return to the one who never leaves his servants alone. Faith is the first and strongest protection against unseen harm. The one who fills his heart with remembrance cannot be touched by fear, because remembrance is light, and light removes all traces of darkness. The path of protection is simple, yet few truly follow it. It is not found in amulets, charms, or the words of magicians who claim to control the unseen. True safety lies in the remembrance of Allah, in the verses of the Quran, and in the prayers performed with sincerity. Every time you say Bismillah, you invite blessings into your affairs. Each time you recite Ayat al-Kursi, you build a wall of light around yourself. When you read Surah Al-Falaq and Surah An-Nas, you are seeking refuge directly from the one who created the morning light and who alone can protect from envy, harm, and evil whispers. The Quran is not merely a book to be recited. It is a living miracle, a source of healing for both the body and the soul. It cleanses the heart from doubt and renews the spirit with peace. When you approach it with sincerity and faith, its words begin to transform your inner world. Fear melts away, patience grows stronger, and hope becomes alive again. That is the spiritual medicine that no worldly treatment can replace. Many people, when struck by hardship, begin searching for shortcuts to relief. They turn to people who claim to remove harm through secret rituals, or they wear objects hoping these will guard them. But the truth is that nothing and no one can protect you except the will of Allah. Seeking help from anyone who disobeys Him only brings greater harm and distance from His mercy. The believer must be wise enough to understand that true healing requires submission, not superstition. Every act of worship builds strength. Every sincere prayer builds protection. The early morning prayer brings peace that lasts through the day, and the evening remembrance shields you from unseen harm at night. Charity, forgiveness, and patience are also forms of spiritual defense. When you forgive those who wrong you, you close the door that envy uses to enter your life. When you remain patient during difficulty, you grow stronger than the test itself. The one who trusts his creator fully never feels alone, even when facing the unknown. Real magic is not in spells or secret words. It is in the transformation that happens inside a faithful heart. When you learn to replace fear with faith, anger with patience, and despair with gratitude, you experience a miracle greater than any form of magic. You begin to see that every pain was sent to polish your soul. Every delay was preparing you for something better, and every loss was guiding you closer to your Lord. The believer who walks with this understanding is untouchable, not because harm does not exist, but because his heart is guarded by divine strength. True protection is not about living a life free from trials, but about carrying unshakable peace through every trial. The real cure is not the end of pain, but the growth that comes from it. When your trust rests completely in the Almighty, you are already healed before the cure arrives. The light of faith becomes your shield, your calm, and your victory. In that light, no darkness can survive, no envy can succeed, and no harm can reach the one whose heart beats with remembrance. In every generation, people have spoken about unseen harm, mysterious blockages, and hidden energies that seem to affect their lives in ways they cannot explain. They call it magic, evil eye, or envy, and many live in constant fear of being targeted by such forces. This fear often grows stronger when one forgets who truly controls the universe. The truth is simple yet powerful. Nothing happens in this world without the permission of the Almighty. He knows every thought, every whisper, and every unseen event before it even occurs. When this understanding takes root in the heart, fear begins to fade. The believer realizes that no human, no jinn, no spell, and no form of envy can harm him unless Allah allows it. And if Allah allows something to happen, it is never to destroy but to teach, cleanse, and to bring the servant closer. This realization brings freedom from anxiety and a deep sense of inner security that cannot be shaken by the whispers of fear. Faith, therefore, becomes the strongest shield a person can ever possess. The one who constantly remembers Allah carries a light that surrounds him wherever he goes. This light is not visible to the eyes, but it is felt in the peace of the heart and the calm of the mind. When you say Bismillah before beginning anything, you are declaring that your trust is with your Creator. When you pray with sincerity, you invite divine protection upon your home and family. The verses of the Quran, when recited regularly, become walls of safety around you. The Quran is not only a book of guidance, but also a source of healing for all forms of harm, visible or invisible. Its words contain a power that no human can imitate, a cure that reaches where medicine cannot. Recited Ayat Al-Kursi, Shura Al-Falaq, and Surah and Nas daily builds layers of protection for the believer. These are not empty rituals, they are acts of faith that reflect complete reliance on the one who guards all creation. Yet, despite the simplicity of this path, many people take the wrong turn. When fear enters their hearts, they begin to seek help from magicians, fortune tellers, or people who promise relief through charms and strange rituals. This is one of the most dangerous traps because it distances the person from the mercy. How can someone expect protection from those who disobey the very Creator who controls all things? Seeking help from such sources only increases fear and brings further harm. The believer must remember that real safety lies not in worldly objects but in sincere worship. When you rise before dawn to pray, you strengthen your spirit. When you give charity, you purify your wealth. When you forgive others, you cleanse your heart of bitterness. And when you show gratitude, you attract blessings you did not expect. These are the true weapons against unseen harm: faith, patience, forgiveness, and remembrance. The challenges that come your way are not meant to break you, but to build you. Every difficulty carries a hidden wisdom. Even if you cannot see it immediately, sometimes what feels like harm is actually protection in disguise. A delay that frustrates you might be saving you from something harmful. A closed door may be directing you towards something better. When you begin to trust that the Almighty's plan is perfect, you stop seeing yourself as a victim of unseen forces and start viewing yourself as a student of divine wisdom. Every hardship becomes a lesson. Every pain becomes a purifier. And every moment of patience becomes a shield stronger than any physical armor. The more you trust, the lighter your heart becomes. Faith replaces fear, and peace replaces panic. The unseen world does not vanish, but its power over you disappears because you now live under the constant awareness of divine control. The real miracle, the real magic is not in the spells people fear, but in the transformation that faith brings. When your heart is filled with remembrance, there is no space left for darkness. When you begin to see every event as part of a divine plan, you stop fearing what others can do to you. The believer who lives with this awareness carries a calmness that nothing can disturb. Even when life becomes uncertain, he stands firm, for he knows that his protector never sleeps. True protection and true cure lie in the bond between the servant and his Lord. A bond built on trust, obedience, and love. When you nurture that connection, no harm can reach you except by his wisdom. And even that harm becomes a gift in disguise. The light of faith becomes your medicine, your comfort, and your shield. With such light in your heart, you no longer chase safety. You live within it. In every corner of the world, people whisper about things they cannot see yet deeply fear. They speak of envy, evil eye, and strange forces that cause harm, loss, or confusion in their lives. Many call it new magic, a term that carries both mystery and fear. Yet very few truly understand its reality. The unseen world is real, but it operates under the same power that governs everything else, the will of the Almighty. Nothing can move, exist, or affect anyone unless he permits it. When the heart realizes this, it finds peace, for no person, no curse, and no unseen force can act independently of the one who created it. Fear begins when faith weakens, but the moment faith strengthens, fear fades away like darkness before light. The believer who trusts completely in Allah walks with calmness even when surrounded by uncertainty, because his heart is anchored in truth. Faith is the foundation of protection. It is not a theory or a word. It is a living shield that grows stronger with remembrance, prayer, and sincerity. When a person begins his day with Bismillah, he invites divine protection upon every step he takes. When he ends his day with gratitude, he closes the doors through which anxiety and harm enter. The remembrance of Allah is not limited to words. It is a state of heart. Each verse from the Quran, each sincere prayer, each act of patience becomes a light that repels darkness. The Quran is a book of healing for both visible and invisible wounds. When recited with understanding and conviction, it brings strength to the weak, calmness to the troubled, and cure to the spiritually ill. Ayat al-Kursi, Surah al-Falaq, and Surah an-Nas are divine shields, but their power is realized only when read with faith. They remind us that all harm and all refuge lie only with the Creator, and no other being can alter his command. Yet, many people, out of fear or ignorance, seek help from the wrong places. They turn to those who claim to know the unseen, to magicians, fortune tellers, or people who offer false cures. In doing so, they lose the protection that faith provides. How can someone who disobeys Allah offer protection from harm that exists only by his will? True protection cannot be bought or worn. It must be earned through obedience and sincerity. When you pray regularly, you strengthen your heart. When you give charity, you clean your soul. When you forgive others, you purify your heart from the bitterness that weakens your spiritual defense. The believer who keeps his heart pure and his faith strong is always protected, even if he does not realize it. The unseen may exist, but it cannot overpower the one whose soul shines with trust and remembrance. Every hardship that visits your life carries a hidden mercy. Sometimes what appears to be harm is actually a form of divine protection. A delay that frustrates you may be saving you from greater pain. A loss that breaks your heart might be removing something that was not meant for you. The Almighty never allows harm without purpose. Every trial is a message calling you to reflect, repent, and return. The more you see life through this lens, the more peaceful you become. You stop blaming unseen forces and start recognizing divine wisdom. You realize that every moment of patience adds strength to your heart, and that every act of gratitude builds a wall of light around you. Fear fades when faith takes over, and even pain becomes a teacher that leads you toward higher understanding. The real miracle, the real new magic, lies not in spells or secrets, but in transformation through faith. When your heart begins to trust Allah fully, everything changes.
1、开始。
The way you see, feel, and
你
respond.
就这么怕你师
You
傅吗？
start viewing difficulties as opportunities for growth. And the unseen becomes a reminder of his unseen mercy. The person who keeps his heart alive with remembrance becomes untouchable by fear. For his trust lies in a power far greater than anything in creation.
你就这
The
么怕你师傅
spiritual
吗？
energy that flows from faith is stronger than any worldly force. It heals, protects, and elevates. It makes the believer shine with calm confidence that no darkness can extinguish. True protection and cure come not from outside but from
我师
within.
傅他
From a
你就
heart
这么
that
怕你师傅吗
remembers, a tongue that prays, and a soul that trusts. When you live in remembrance, you are never
我
alone.
师傅他
Angels
你就这么怕你
surround
师傅
you.
吗？
Peace follows you, and every step you take becomes guided. The one who trusts in his Creator does not run from fear.
你就
He
这么怕你
walks
师傅吗？
through it with light. That is the secret of real healing. To find safety in surrender, peace in patience, and strength in faith. When you understand this, you realize that the unseen word holds no threat for a believer who walks under the mercy of his Lord. For his heart itself becomes a fortress that no darkness can enter. Many people today find themselves trapped between fear and confusion, worried about unseen things they cannot control. They speak of envy, evil eye, and hidden harm that seems to strike without warning. Some call it new magic, but what they often forget is that everything that exists, seen or unseen, operates under the command of the Almighty. Nothing in this universe has the power to act on its own. When you understand this truth deeply, you begin to realize that fear is only a shadow created by weak faith. The one who trusts completely in his Creator never feels threatened by what others might plan, for he knows that every situation unfolds with divine wisdom. The more you strengthen your faith, the less control fear has over your heart. Faith is not merely a belief in words. It is a living force that guards the soul. A heart that remembers its Lord is like a fortress surrounded by light, impossible for darkness to enter. When you begin your tasks with Bismillah, you bring blessings into your actions. When you remember Allah throughout your day, your heart remains calm, even when the world around you feels uncertain. The Quran teaches that the remembrance brings peace, and that peace is the greatest form of protection. Every verse recited with sincerity becomes a shield. Every prayer whispered in humility becomes a cure. The recitation of Ayat Al-Kursi, Surah Al-Falaq, and Surah Nas each day strengthens your spiritual armor, for these verses are words of divine refuge that repel harm from the unseen. The Quran is not only a book to be read, but a source of healing for every form of pain. When recited with reflection, it calms the heart and revives the soul. Its verses remind us that no harm or hardship can touch us without the will of the Creator, and no cure can reach us without His mercy. The one who truly believes this walks with an invisible protection that no spell, envy, or ill intention can break. The healing found in the Quran works in silence. It soothes fear, removes doubt, and strengthens trust. Faith, remembrance, and patience together form the true medicine for both the body and the spirit. Sadly, when fear takes over, many people look for help in the wrong places. They turn to magicians, fortune, tellers, and false healers who claim to control the unseen. They wear charms or rely on objects thinking these will protect them. In truth, such actions only weaken their connection with Allah and invite more harm. How can one seek protection from those who disobey the very Creator of protection itself? The real cure is not in human tricks or whispered rituals, but in sincere worship and pure faith. When you pray on time, give charity, and live with gratitude, you are building unseen shields that no darkness can break. Every good deed strengthens your light, and every remembrance increases your protection. The trials you face are not punishments, but invitations to come closer to your Lord. Every hardship carries a message, and every delay hides a blessing. Sometimes the pain you feel is a purification, removing pride or weakness from your heart. Sometimes what appears as loss is actually the start of something greater. The one who trusts in divine timing never feels abandoned because he knows that what is written for him will reach him, and what is not meant for him will never harm him. This realization brings peace far beyond what the world can offer. You stop fearing what you cannot see and start trusting what you cannot doubt, the wisdom of your Creator. The real transformation happens within. When the heart lets go of fear and fills itself with trust, it experiences a miracle greater than any form of magic. Faith changes how you see the world. It turns obstacles into opportunities and pain into purification. The believer who walks with this light does not panic when life becomes difficult. He sees every test as a lesson, every setback as a sign, and every success as a gift. Such a heart becomes untouchable, not because harm no longer exists, but because peace now lives within it. The light of belief makes the soul unbreakable and the mind unshakable. True protection and cure are born from within, from a heart that trusts, a tongue that remembers, and a soul that surrenders completely to its Lord. When you live in constant awareness of the Almighty, you stop chasing protection because you become it. Your faith turns into your shield. Your patience becomes your weapon, and your gratitude becomes your healing. You walk through fear with calmness, through pain with wisdom, and through life with purpose. That is the secret of divine protection. It is not about avoiding harm, but about being so connected to your Creator that no harm can control you. The one who lives with such faith carries peace wherever he goes, for his heart itself becomes the light that no darkness can touch.